Well, yes, hello, everybody. It is Tom Sykes, the
Hello.
royalist, here with Paula Froelich.
Oh, I can't hear you, Tom. Can't hear you, bud.
Paula.
Sorry.
Okay.
And help us, you guys. Every now and
I
again,
think
this
I think the
happens,
rest of
and
the
it's
world can hear
insanely
me.
frustrating.
I think it's just you who can't hear me, Paula.
Nope.
Okay, sorry, Paula. Maybe you could log out and come back in. Oh, she can't hear me.
God. Tom, it's your microphone.
So it's you. You can't hear me. Look at the comments.
Put your receiver on your put the microphone, your speaker onto your thing.
Honey, look at the comments. Well, she can't hear me.
Sorry, guys.
You're gonna have to quit and come back in, Paula.
Can you get? Yeah, I can't. No, it's not me. Hold on, let me try. It's
you.
not me.
Okay.
It's not
so,
because I've got the default
Paula,
speakers
Paula.
on my Mac. Oh, got it. We're good.
Okay. Hi. Sorry about that. Tom Sykes, the royalist here. That was Paula, as usual, blaming me for her technical problems. Ding. Paula couldn't hear me, but the rest of you could hear me. I've got to warn you, before we came on air today, Paula told me that she's been up since 5:45, and I think she said she's had 5 cups of coffee, but maybe it was 6, Paula. Were you doing News Nation this morning?
I was. Every morning, Wednesday through Sunday, I get up at around 5:45, pancake my face, spray my hair, and stay up.
Well, you're doing great. You're doing great, and we're delighted to have you. Listen, thanks so much, everybody, for being here. A couple of housekeeping notes before we get started. I've made some adjustments to my audio setup, which involve putting a huge duvet over my desk. And I'm told this is going to improve the sound quality, because some of you have been saying to me that the sound quality is not great. So at the end, towards the end of this show, Ben is going to do a poll where you can vote on whether my sound quality is better or worse. Anyway, that said, let's get into today's royal news. There's a whole load happening, and there's a whole load we're going to cover. We're going to be talking about Invictus with Paula, with some new revelations from the Invictus Games. We're going to be talking about the meltdown at Netflix and the follow-up to that that's been happening over the past few days. We're going to be talking about a sensational new report in the Daily Mail saying that Beatrice could be moving to America, and Paula is going to be explaining how should we put it, an unexpected benefit of that move. And we're also going to be covering a sensational new biography of Queen Elizabeth II by a very close, a friend might be pushing it too far, but certainly somebody who knew her very well, Hugo Vickers. He's close to the family. He's close to the establishment. He's an old Etonian. He says in the book that he suspects that he met her 40 times over the course of 55 years, sometimes in formal settings, sometimes in informal settings. And he has an amazing revelation about what the Queen said about Harry when he left to go to America. So we'll be getting into all that. But where should we start, Paula? Should we start with the Invictus Games stuff that you were telling me about?
No. I want to start. We will get there. But I really want to get into Beatrice possibly moving to America.
Yeah. So it's an amazing story in the Mail today. As you know, those who read my Substack, I was the first to report that Beatrice was very stressed, very unhappy. The exact quotes that a source gave me at the time, saying that she couldn't eat and she couldn't sleep. Then, of course, there was this report by Charlotte Griffiths saying that the marriage was in trouble. And now, Paula, I believe there's a report in the Mail saying they might move to America. What's it all about?
Okay, well, I'm excited because it's basically pulling a Meghan and Harry, pulling a Harry, if you will, because, things don't work out at home. What are you going to do? You're going to go to America, the land of 1 million chances. And I believe that if they did come to America, they'd likely go to Florida, Palm Beach, Miami, where Edo, her husband, has been spending a lot of time this year. And frankly, it's kind of perfect because Beatrice is basically running away from the Epstein scandal in the UK. And and if she lands in Florida, great. She'll be surrounded by people who were friends with Epstein and who, quite frankly, don't mind a little Epstein scandal because they're all caught up in it. You know, you've got the former mayor of Miami was a good friend of his, Philip Levine. You've got Alan Dershowitz, his lawyer who lives there. You've got a bunch of Palm Beach officials. Of course, you've Alexander Acosta, the guy who gave him the amazing deal, Epstein, when, you know, he was sent away for underage girls and trying to get with them, and basically became a pedophile. Alexander Acosta was the guy who said, no real jail for you, buddy. You can just spend the night in jail and go have Monday through Friday free doing business. Wink.
So so Paula, you think that to move to America, it would enable them to really not stand out in a way, because so many people are caught up in this scandal in that part of the world that effectively, what's the big deal? Two more, who cares?
100%. But also the thing is, Tom, is that there are a lot of tons amounts of social climbers in that area of Florida. All right. And it doesn't matter that she isn't the besties with the actual nuclear royal family anymore. They'd still be like, well, she's a princess. And trust me, she would be invited to all the Palm Beach doyen luncheons. She would be all over Miami. And I wouldn't be shocked to see her on Star Island at the Kushner's house. So, you know, I mean, Jared and Ivanka live on Star Island. Ivanka's father, President Trump, has already said he feels bad about Andrew. And that was too bad that, you know, he had to get his title taken away. Trump loves a royal. And, you know, they've met him before. I don't think it would be a cold shoulder welcome. The other added benefit between us would be her mother and father can't visit, because we know the Americans definitely want to talk to Andrew, and there have been mumbles about them wanting to talk to Sarah Ferguson. So it would be very difficult for, I think, Fergie to come for more than a week or two. Although, to be fair, you know, you've got people who hide out in Miami all the time, and Palm Beach as well. But yeah, I don't think it's such a bad idea. I mean, if they need to get away from this, and frankly, they're persona non grata in London and the Cotswolds right now, why not?
I agree. It's not a far-fetched idea at all. It's worked out very well for Princess Eugenie and Jack Brooksbank, who've moved to Portugal. They're living quite happily in Portugal. They keep a low profile. I think the thing that seems to me, that there seems to be an odd tension here, though, because on the one hand, they're saying, okay, actually, they want to stay out of the limelight. They want to just live a private life. They don't want the attention. They're sick of the attention that comes with their parents, etc., etc. But at the same time, I'm a bit like, well, then why are you going to Sandringham at Christmas with the King? Why are you accepting a controversial patronage of the Outward Bound Trust? And of course, the simple answer to this could be, well, things have changed since Christmas, and obviously there has been fresh material released since Christmas. But I do think that I wonder whether really Beatrice is quite wedded to the hierarchy. She's quite wedded to her status. I wonder really whether she could give all that up to go and live in America. I mean, obviously she'd be, as you say, very, very personally, Paula, she would not be given the cold shoulder in America. She would be welcomed into the bosom of the community there. As you say, they love a social climber. But I wonder if it would be quite the same for her. I don't know. To me, there's something that just doesn't quite add up in these two narratives.
I'm going to disagree with you, though, because I definitely think because you said she's wedded to her title, right? And she likes all the things that come with her title and the class and the hierarchy. I definitely think she would be feted and treated like the princess she is used to being in Florida, as long as they got the money to back it up.
It's interesting, just because I know people who know them where they live up in the Cotswolds, and it's just funny. She is very, very English. You know, I wonder really how, well, I guess it's one of those things where time will tell. But a little bit more detail from the Mail. So the Mail has two stories today about this. One saying that she's going to move, by Nick Pisa, who's sort of quite a well-known tabloid reporter. Another one by Barbara Davis, who's a senior editor at the Mail. The one by Barbara Davis actually, I thought, sort of slightly more interesting, saying, giving a bit more of a portrait of how Beatrice keeps bursting into tears, that Edo finds this really annoying, that she's bursting into tears the whole time. Well, not annoying, she doesn't say that, but difficult to cope with. And also says that Beatrice is hyper dependent on her mother, which I found very interesting, because there's been a lot of reporting this week about how people saying that they went for meetings with Sarah Ferguson, and just like happened at the Newsnight interview, Beatrice is there translating Sarah's stream of consciousness madness into human that you and I can understand.
Yes, and I do think that they are actually quite intertwined. But I also think going to Florida would solve that. You know, you have people like Benjamin Netanyahu's son, who's been living under the radar in Miami since October 7th for years now, and nobody can quite get a hold of him, whatever. I think that if Beatrice, however British she may be, and by the way, that doesn't mean that she can't go back to England. I'm just saying, let it lie down, get a house in Florida. Your mother can come in and out, because it's not like her father, where Congress has said, absolutely not, we want to talk to you. They haven't said that about Sarah yet. They've made mumblings that they want to. So Sarah could come back and forth. Now, Edo, unfortunately, does not seem like the most, what's the word, empathetic type. He does not seem like the guy that when the chips are down, he's going to get your back. So yes, of course she's relying on her mother, probably talking to her, sympathizing, empathizing, freaking out together, right? But, you know, Edo just wants his business back. He just wants his nice life where people feted him and her, and we're like, yes, you guys are royals. You're an Italian count. She's a princess. Wonderful. You make every event classy. Of course, now it's classy with a K. But I think that they could get what Edo wants back by doing a place in Florida. Now, the really interesting thing is that, are they going to mimic Harry and Meghan completely? Now, Beatrice is not as close with Harry and Meghan as Eugenie is. However, you know, it got rough for Harry and Meghan in London. Boop, they're out. They go to the States. Now, they've obviously stepped in it a gazillion times over since they've been here. You know, Meghan can't get out of her own way, and Harry can't think himself out of a box, so he relies on her. I think it would be different for Beatrice and Edo, because Edo has the business, he would have the parties, she loves a party. And she's also technically in banking. However, there, as we know, tons of banks in America and tons of rich people that she could bring to her bank.
I think on that question, I mean, I think that anybody has learnt the lesson of Meghan and Harry, which is that you can't leave in a blaze of recrimination. You need to leave on good terms. You need to agree at all with the palace. It needs to be a managed process. I think she would be far too shrewd to do a Harry. I think that what is absolutely true is that she is no longer going to get that level of automatic deference that she would get in America, in the United Kingdom, that those days are over. And as Nick Pisa's source says in this piece, this could go on for years, because Andrew has yet to be formally charged. He has yet to end up in court. And if he ends up in court, he could end up in jail. You know, so there's no end in sight for this. So, I mean, certainly that on the one hand, I do feel that Beatrice is sort of so quintessentially wedded to England and her English lifestyle. I think that it would be a massive wrench for her. But on the other hand, I do understand that it's a very appealing option if you want to leave some of this stuff behind and get on with your life. So
I mean,
anyway, I think it's a
well,
watch this space scenario.
I also think, here's my advice, Tom. They get a place in Palm Beach, or Miami, and then they spend the summers in the Cotswolds. You know, it's fine. Everyone loves the summer in the Cotswolds. There's all the parties. They're probably not going to maybe get invited this year. That's okay. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. And of course, all their English friends who have money are going to want to visit them in Palm Beach because guess what? As you know, and I know, English winters are hell. The one thing I did want to bring up, because I saw a comment about the Norway princess, and I just want to address that really quickly, Meta Merritt. And this is my belief. Again, I could be wrong, but this is my belief. It is my belief that she will not be allowed to be queen. I think she will have to be a consort. But because of her Epstein connections, very close relationship. Also, she's never apologized. Meta Merritt has never come out and said, I feel so bad for the victims and anything. No.
Yeah, she's certainly played it very, very badly.
Hideously.
Okay,
there we go.
So moving on, another wonderful story by Hugo Vickers. Now, Hugo Vickers is a kind of establishment figure. He's been involved with kind of jolly good royal charities like the Queen's Footpath. He was not exactly a friend of the Queen's, but certainly a close acquaintance of the Queen. How he describes it in this new book that he's written, which is called Elizabeth II, A Personal Portrait. And it's been serialized in the Mail today. How he describes his relationship with the Queen, he says that originally he watched her from afar, like a kind of train spotter, like anyone else at public events. And slowly he became involved in organizations, and that he estimates that he met her 40 times over 55 years. And that sometimes it was purely formal, but sometimes there was an opportunity to talk and to chat. So he has very, very, I would say, impeccable contacts within the royal machine and within the royal establishment. And he delivered a damning verdict about the Queen's opinion on Prince Harry leaving the royal family, didn't he, Paula?
He did. It was, I love guys like this because the thing about the royal family is they are kind of hands off with press or with people who are there to cover them. But the very trusted ones are allowed in quite a bit. And my favorite part of his upcoming book, if you don't mind me blasting it out right now, is that Queen Elizabeth's reaction to Harry and Meghan leaving was, oh, Harry's basically leaving to become a nanny. And the Queen was not wrong.
Just to give you the exact quote, he writes that the monarch mocked Harry's, and I've done this up for my Substack, that the monarch mocked Harry's move to California by remarking, and now Harry has opted out, and for what? To be a carer for Archie.
And by the way, she's not wrong. I mean, yes, they have up to 4 nannies and Doria, Meghan's mother, but the problem is Harry, as I've written, as you've written, as other people have then picked up from us, Harry has nothing to do. He has no job, despite the fact that he is going down to Melbourne and talking about mental health in the workplace. The guy has never really ever had a job he's ever had to show up to on a regular basis and stay there for hours and actually deal with crap bosses because he was always the boss. And now he sits there in Montecito hanging out with his security guards who are now his friends, running around after Meghan, sometimes picking up the children. But yes, his main job is as a carer for his children and to be Meghan's sidekick and to show up so Meghan can then have her legitimacy. And the Queen was not wrong. And she also knew that Harry, by making that comment, she knew that Harry wasn't going to get a job, could not get a job other than one he already had, which is showing up somewhere, shaking hands, cutting a ribbon, and popping some jokes for an hour or two, and then going back to the castle and having a beer. or except the army. But the army was regimented. He loves a regiment. But this is not a regimented life in Montecito, and most workplaces aren't regimented. So the Queen was very prescient on that one.
And what I find really interesting about this comment is that it actually totally meshes with what Harry's team have always said. Like when he first moved out there, I remember speaking to them going, what's he doing all day? And they're like, he's looking after the kids. He's enjoying the California sunshine. He's having a great time. So, and it's so interesting because it's like the gap between the generations, like from Harry's generation, it's perceived as, you know, this is me living my best life, looking after my kids. And of course, lots of I, you know, spent a lot of time looking after my children when they were younger, and I really enjoyed that. And it's so funny that the Queen just sees this as the most ghastly, boring thing you can ever do. Now, I think Hugo Vickers may not have done the Queen a massive favor because her child rearing has, shall we say, had some interesting consequences.
Been a little lacking
later. Yes, exactly. Or
but Tom,
what? Yeah.
It just reminds me when Harry and Meghan first got married, and Germaine Greer gave a quote. And it was really kind of a warning quote to Meghan. And the quote was something along the lines of, there will be a gaping maw of boredom before you. And I think Harry's facing a gaping maw of boredom because the kids are getting older. Archie is in school. And yes, Lily's there, but again, 4 nannies. And what do you do all day? It's kind of like I once had a cousin. I have several cousins in Florida, but one of my cousins lived in Miami when I was in college. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I'm so excited you moved here. It was right on the beach. It was cool. I was down for spring break. And my cousin looked at me and he goes, paradise gets old when you're in it every day. And,
yeah,
you know, it's taking in the California sunshine is lovely. But what do you do all day? It's like, oh God, I've got 8 hours left, and you're rocking in the corner like eating your fist. I'm not quite sure.
A much more, I think, contentious allegation in this book, because fundamentally, I would say that both sides agree on that. They might disagree on the perception of it. But the really, actually very serious allegation that Vickers makes in this book is about the impact that Harry and Meghan's series of interviews, the book, the publicity, slagging off the royal family, saying how terrible they were, the impact that that specifically had on the Duke of Edinburgh's health. And he has a very, very interesting detail here, which can only come from the horse's mouth, where he says that because the Duke of Edinburgh was having heart surgery when the Oprah interview, the first Oprah interview, that was really the massive bombshell, right? When that first screened.
Let me just
no, Paula, I'm sorry. I need to finish what I'm saying.
Okay, but Americans need to know who the Duke of Edinburgh is.
The Queen's husband.
Thank you.
So the Queen Elizabeth II's husband, the Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip, was having heart surgery when the first Oprah interview screened. And Hugo Vickers has this amazing insight, which can only come from the horse's mouth, where he says they nearly lost him twice. Now, This is huge. This is absolutely huge because the fight and the tussle over the Queen Elizabeth's legacy is so poisonous because everybody claims the Queen loved me. I was the Queen's favorite. We've seen even Sarah Ferguson alleging it through saying that the corgis were communicating through it, which is a story I broke last week. So the fight and the tussle and the argument over the Queen's legacy is totally poisonous. And I tell you this, Harry's team won't mind at all about the Queen saying he's pissing around with the kids. They will be furious about Hugo Vickers saying that the Queen was absolutely devastated by Harry and Meghan's actions in giving all those interviews and doing all that publicity.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, the thing is that Harry, again, as you said, has always been like, oh no, don't worry. I'll talk to the Queen. I'll sort out the deal between us. We'll get in and out. He didn't. That's okay. The Queen loves us. We've got to take Lilibet to go meet her. And of course, Lilibet, the name, that was the Queen's nickname, and she was upset about that. But Harry claims that he ran it by her first. But, they did do damage. Philip was not in great health. He then died, and the Queen was furious about it, and she should have been, because in our last years, I mean, Philip led, whatever you want to say about Philip, he led a life of service. And he led a life of service to country and to Queen. And for his heart to have been broken by Harry and Meghan doing what they did with the Oprah interview, with Spare, with all this stuff, and the Netflix documentary, it was disgusting. And I'm glad someone is finally saying what they know, because we do know that the Queen made comments. She made comments to Angela, her dresser. She's made comments to other people. And also the Queen's heartbreak as well, Tom. That is something that I think Harry just ignores. And Harry will now say, well, this is just another book of someone saying something. But at some point, you've got to be like, Harry, your actions had repercussions. And he's, unfortunately, the way that the royal family was raised, I'm hoping William and Catherine are not doing this, and I don't think they are. If you were royal, there were never any repercussions for your actions. Of course, we saw that with Andrew and whatnot. But Harry has to understand that his grandmother and his grandfather, whom he adored, didn't think that much of him at the end.
Yeah. So Vickers says that the distress caused by the Duke and Duchess of Sussex in the Queen's final years cannot be overstated. He claims that whenever Harry phoned his grandmother, she asked for a lady in waiting to remain present. He also says that a lady in waiting was asked to be present when Harry came over for the Jubilee with Lilibet and introduced Lilibet to the Queen. And obviously there had been that controversy that Paula referred to about the naming of the child, where she said, I've never had anything of my own except my name, and they've taken that from me. That was in Robert Jobson's book, I think. This is going to absolutely infuriate Harry, and I expect we will see some kind of pushback against it from their side, because you may remember that in April 2022, after Harry and Meghan were on their way to the Invictus Games in, I think, Dusseldorf, and they stopped in the UK, they still had Frogmore Cottage at that stage, because Frogmore was only taken off them after Spare. So while the Queen was alive, they still had Frogmore Cottage, which, to be fair, was the Queen's wish. I mean, that's what she said in the Sandringham Summit. So they turned up at Frogmore and they went to go and see the Queen. And you may remember that Harry gave an interview to NBC in which he said that his main reason for going was to make sure that she was, I quote, protected and had, I quote, the right people around her. And those comments infuriated the palace after everything that they had done and everything they had said, being so rude about this institution that she had given her life for, etc., etc. So this is the thing about Harry being a carer, I think, is really fascinating to us. But this is actually the thing that's going to wound Harry in this book.
Well, the other thing is, Tom, every time he goes to see his father won't be in a room with him. And this happened, of course, after Spare and after Queen Elizabeth had said recollections may vary. And now they want to make sure recollections never vary, because he's not allowed to be alone with anyone. Even if he does come back this summer for a meeting in Birmingham about the Invictus Games, which we will get into in a minute, even if he tries to meet with his father at some point, never alone, which is, I think he's got to realize, you're not to be trusted when your family refuses to be alone with you. That's a gut punch.
Yeah, it's not a great situation to be in. And I'm very excited to say that I have to hasten to add, provisionally booked Hugo Vickers to come on the all new Royalist podcast, not next week, but the week after. I think he has some contractual obligations to see out first.
Oh boy.
But I'm going to be very, very excited to have him on the Royalist podcast. And also this week, I'm actually having Matt Donnelly, who's the reporter from Variety, who did that amazing story about, Meghan refusing to be on the Zoom calls when she got annoyed and that kind of stuff. So that'll be fun. But Paula, you wanted to tell us some stuff about Invictus. Was that correct?
Yeah, I think it's fascinating because, I did this story about the Invictus Games being in trouble. Invictus Games in Birmingham. And I think it's fascinating because, Harry, first of all, you'll remember in January had announced via sources. Oh, I can't wink any harder. I'm going to start getting a tick in my eye. Sources to People magazine, their mouthpiece, that they've been assured he and Meghan will have state-funded protection and all this other stuff. It's just formalities. Well, the formalities have gotten in the way because, again, the Labour government is so unpopular right now. England is having a hard economic time. And in England, Birmingham is especially having a hard economic time. 2023, it declared bankruptcy. Again, you've talked about it. There are huge rats. The garbage is piling up. They still haven't got it quite right. And now it comes out that the games are basically going to be funded by the Labour government. Tens of millions of dollars are going into these Invictus Games. So, hey, English guys, that's hey, Brits, that's where your taxpayers or tax money, can't speak, sorry, been up since 5:30. That's where your tax money is going, which is incredibly frustrating. Also because and I'm going to get into it this week in News Nation and on my Substack, when you look at their tax returns, the amount of money that actually go to the wounded warriors, pennies on the dollar. It's really not much at all. And in fact, in 2024, the last tax return, they only gave out around £200,000. And 2023, the year before, they gave out £550,000. So the question is, where is the money going to? Why is this happening? And also, ever since Tom Bauer's new book has come out, you wonder, is this really just an organization, as frankly, and I hate to say it, so many charitable organizations are? Is this really just something to burnish Harry's reputation and Meghan's? Is this something for them to hang their hat on and say, look, we do good. We showed up. We do good. And again, the issue is they don't show up all the time. This is not their 9-to-5 job, which if you're really doing a charity, it's more than 9 to 5. It's a 60-hour-a-week thing. However, they don't even have a head of marketing yet for the entire umbrella for the games. They have staffing issues, and their reputation is such in England that people have turned the jobs down. It's very difficult. It is my belief they are not going to be able to get a serious person who has the chops to really market, communicate, lead these games in time. It's less than a year and a half away. It's a huge problem. Look at their Instagram. The Birmingham Invictus Games has maybe 1,200 people following it, maybe. And it's all full of old stuff. It doesn't necessarily follow the wounded warriors. It's fascinating. And Harry's not liked in Birmingham. So if there was ever a time for security, he will need it in Birmingham. Now, of course, we all know when he's going, in July. So, of course, the government will provide him security then. But it's going to be a huge problem. And I'm having people actually say they think the games will either be taken down a notch or actually called off completely.
I think that the problem that they have, that fundamentally the massive structural problem that the Invictus Games has, is that it was established as a joint project of what was then the Royal Foundation of Prince Harry and the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, as they were, i.e. William and Catherine, right? So it was originally established with the support of the King, with the support of the British military. And in fact, Ed Lane Fox, who was his PPS at the time, was like one of the secretaries of the foundation. But the bigger point is that it was established under Prince Harry as a member of the royal family. It was seen as a project associated with the royal family. And so understandably, when the people in charge of it decide to start taking aim at the royal family and taking shots at the royal family, the people who thought they were in this thing which was supported by the royal family are left slightly confused that they're now allied with an institution whose figurehead seems to be obsessed with trying to bring down the royal family. So, I mean, you can see why many people believe that Harry's position is frankly not sustainable.
Absolutely. The other thing is, you look at when it started till now. In the past, the games have gotten the Obamas, they got the Bidens, they got huge world figures. And the last one got a former prime minister and Katy Perry. So that was in Canada, of course. But it's very frustrating, I think, for the Warriors as well, and confusing, but also there's so many other great organizations out there. These guys who were wounded mentally, physically, and my heart goes out to them. I know a lot of people like this in the American military. They want to be together, but unlike, say, I do some work for the Navy SEAL Foundation, all right? And what the Navy SEAL Foundation does, unlike Invictus, is they provide mental support, they provide jobs, they provide job interviews, they provide retraining. And you look at Invictus and say, why are you not doing this? I don't understand. It just seems we're going to do one game a year and voila! By the way, there's Harry and Meghan.
Ben, to our producer Ben, to Paula's point there about how it used to have this support of all these powerful people, I wonder if you could find us. There's an incredible clip that the Queen agreed to do with Harry, which really makes my point. So it's if you look for the clip, it's the Queen, the Obamas, and Harry, and it's this kind of very famous clip. And I think we could play it. I think we can risk playing it with the sound as well, if you could find it. That would be great. And maybe we could put that poll up about my sound as well at some point, not to overload you with stuff. But we'll wait and see if we can get that video, and then we'll talk about it, because it really makes your point, Paula, that this was an organization that had everybody. It had the most powerful people in the world behind it. It had the sovereign of the United Kingdom. It had the president of the United States. It had the first lady of the United States. It had everybody. It had everything. And, you know, as Tom Bauer makes very clear in his book, you turn up to it now, there's 100 people, you're corralled around, you're made to shout, Harry, Harry, Harry. And it's embarrassing. And it's, you know, and I think this is often the thing with any business or any charity or any brand, even a person. When the wind's in your sails and the momentum's with you, it's great. Everyone wants to be on your side. The moment your brand starts to get a little toxic, and I saw you talking about this, Paula, the other day with Kinsey Schofield, saying how, you know, she was saying how in California now, their brand is quite toxic and people just don't want to be around them. It's not a good look to be associated with them. And I think that the same thing is happening with Invictus. I think the king is going to have to think very, very carefully about whether or not he accepts this invitation. I mean, his instinct is to want to accept it. His instinct is that this is a brilliant thing that his son has done. But the problem is that the games now appear, frankly, to be failing.
Yeah, I don't think he will. I'll be fully honest. I don't see how King Charles could go at this point. Again, he's not very popular in Birmingham. We know King Charles is a little thin-skinned. He doesn't like the booze. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. He should look at Harry and say, you are my son. We can have a familial relationship, but no more work. That's it. We got to put work over here, cut it out. And if you would like to come visit, please do. I would love to see you. But the other thing is, Invictus is now, to your point, I feel it's lost its way. It's
Mm,
really just one thing a year. Woo woo, we've got this.
mm, mm,
And,
mm,
now it's Harry and Meghan are coming. And also, they're funding these trips. Harry and Meghan, as we know, don't like to pay for anything.
mm,
However, it's like Denzel Washington with the Boys and Girls Club. The difference between him and J-Lo. Denzel was the figurehead of Boys and Girls Club. He paid for everything. Not 1 cent from the Boys and Girls Club went to his flights, went to anything. Jennifer Lopez, unfortunately, made them pay for everything, and it was kind of a bust the year that she was their figurehead. And Harry right now is becoming a bust. He's becoming a
mm.
financial drain, and he's becoming an emotional drain. And also, it's not about Harry or Meghan. It is about these guys who fought for their country, period.
Let's see. I think Ben might have that clip for us. Do you have the
right.
clip for us, Ben?
With a little help from her grandson, the Queen has dusted down her acting skills once again, this time for the Invictus Games for injured servicemen and women, which begin in Florida next month.
It's quite close, isn't it?
Message? Yeah, from
That's
Michelle.
sweet, isn't it?
Oh, very amusing. So you like to watch it together?
Yes.
Let's have a look.
Hey, Prince Harry. Remember when you told us to bring it at the Invictus Games?
Careful what you wish for.
Boom.
Oh, really?
That was the Obamas doing a
Boom.
throwdown. We're going to get America. Mic drop. Which, I mean, it's just, and now it's not much, and they can't get people to work for them. It's really difficult. Also, it's very confusing because you have the umbrella Victus Games, then you've got Birmingham, then you had Canada, so they were separate. And I get it for monetary tax reasons, but there's a lot of vacancies going on, and they're having a real hard time filling it because, again, what is your mission? I don't understand. If you are, these guys and these men and women need to be supported, not just one day out of the year. They need a community, they need jobs, they need retraining, they need psychotherapy, they need physical therapy. And the money is not going to that, at least according to the tax returns that I have looked at.
Yeah, and it's interesting looking at that video to just think about how quickly Harry really had the most powerful people in the world, really, able to. And it's interesting, actually, the story of how that video was filmed, that Harry literally went over with a film crew. He was going for tea and he said, how would you feel about doing it? Let me show you this film that he did have from the Obamas. And the Queen said, of course, I'd be delighted to do it. I'd love to support it. And it makes me quite nostalgic for the Queen and the kind of, we know that we know now that, of course, as we knew then, to be honest, that she wasn't perfect, but we chose to believe, we suspended our disbelief, and she was this very unifying figure. Maybe it was a willful ignorance that some of us had about her, but at the same time, just in terms of what the Invictus could rally and muster behind it, when Harry was a member of the royal family in good standing, compared to when he's made himself the ultimate outcast.
Yeah.
I mean, you just think, I fail to see, really. I mean, of course, he's the president for this year, but I fail to see how he can still be at the head of that charity in 2029. I don't think it's fair on everybody involved in it. It's too distracting. It's like the whole thing has become this political dog and pony show. It's all completely subsumed by whether or not he's going to meet the king. Is he going to meet the king? Is he going to meet the king? I don't know. Nobody knows. We've invited him. We haven't invited him. It's like that, as you say, the fact that this is wounded veterans competing is almost completely lost in the midst of the messaging and the confusion and the PR about the whole thing. And on top of that, you now have this massive problem with Birmingham, as Tom Bower pointed out in his book, and as you've pointed out, and as anyone with a brain can point out, that you're going to have IDF soldiers competing in a heavily Muslim city in England, which this is not an exaggeration, it's a matter of public record that there are Sharia courts in parts of Birmingham. I mean, it's crazy, but that is the situation that is going to be unfolding there next year.
Well, and again, I just want not to harp on this. What bothers me is that because Harry's had everything taken care of his whole life, Invictus was set up from scratch, and it was such a great idea, right? And everyone loved it. And so Harry's like, great, I get to keep this. When we do Megxit, I keep the most successful charity ever, bling blong. Charity is really goddamn hard. And to have a good one, to have it run well. And he and Meghan do not ask for help. So they could have looked at the Navy SEAL Foundation. They could have looked at others and said, hey, can we do a joint? Or it's kind of like them putting out an announcement yesterday saying, Meta lost and yay, about the
about their friend Mark Zuckerberg.
About their friend Mark Zuckerberg. And they're, in a way cheering it on, but trying to take credit when really it was the Fair Play Foundation that funded and won that. And at no point when they set up Archwell, at no point when they did their parents' thing, did they ever call up Fair Play and say, hey, can we learn from you? Can we kind of come in with you? Because, and I say this all the time, I don't give a penny to charity that is a personal foundation or without looking up its financials first, because it is much easier. It's much easier to say, here, we're going to fund into you, we're going to do this, and we will give to these things, as opposed to setting up your own thing, wasting people's money, and not knowing what you're doing with it. And unfortunately, I feel like Invictus went from great to dust because the people who knew what they were doing when they set up the foundation left. They've had staff turnover like crazy balls. And now you're just left with Harry's camp, and some of them know what they're doing, some of them don't, but who's in charge? It doesn't matter, because you can't tell Harry anything he doesn't like or you're fired. Look at Sophie Chandaka.
Yeah, exactly. Paula, thank you so much. I think we better go. Before we
Yes.
go, Ben, maybe you could play us out one more time with that video if we've got it. Oh, is the sound quality better? Yes, 92%. Oh my God, that is fantastic.
Excellent.
Ben, what I'm going to suggest is we'll say goodbye and then play us that video one more time, and then when it gets to the end the broadcast. Thank you so much, Paula. Thank you, Ben.
Love you, Tommy. Love everyone.
Thank
you, guys.
We love you all.
From her grandson, the Queen has dusted down her acting skills once again, this time for the Invictus Games for injured servicemen and women, which begin in Florida next month.
It was quite close, isn't it?
Message? Yeah, from Michelle. How very amusing. So we like to watch it together?
Yes.
Let's have a look.
Hey, Prince Harry. Remember when you told us to bring it at the Invictus Games?
Careful what you wish for.
Oh, really? Please.
Boom.